Hello and welcome to another episode of the Selfish Podcast. Today we have Craig Taylor. Now, unlike many of my other guests who I know nothing about, I do know something about him. He brought my website, lukegreenheart.com, a few years ago, so I'm really appreciative of him and his influence and support over the years. So I'm excited to get to know him as this is our first real live conversation, can you believe, one-to-one. So I'm going to get to know him, his life and his story. So welcome, Craig. Can you just share with myself and the audience, where in the world are you? What time of day is it for you?
It is 1 o'clock in the afternoon and in sunny Glasgow for a change. The sun's out. I can see the yellow thing in the sky for a change. So yeah, Glasgow, just outside Glasgow.
Nice. And as normal, I'm in Spain, but as you can see, I'm actually layered up. It's a cold morning. I'm an hour.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
It's
it doesn't look particularly. It looks Spain weather in the background, but you're wrapped up.
Yeah, no, it's cold. It's actually cold and it's afternoon. The weather's just dropped. I can see rain clouds. I'm under a bit of shelter right now in case it starts pouring down.
Whereabouts in actual Spain are you at the moment?
So now I am just north of Portugal in the west of Spain. So quite close to the border of Portugal.
Right.
Yeah, so for the summer, come up here because it just gets too hot in the south. But now winter's coming, so it's going to be time to start migrating to the south.
It's an area of Spain I've not actually explored too much. Like everywhere I've been in Spain tends to be over the sort of like the Costa del Sol kind of area, and then obviously the islands and stuff. I mean,
well, the tourism's all around the coast, The coast is where people go. And I've noticed traveling along it that different nationalities go to different areas. So you get the Germans and the English seem to like the south coast in certain areas more. You get the northern English people seem to like the actual east coast more. And I think it's the heat. If you come from Scotland, South Spain's really hot. If you come from South England, they want like that little bit of different. They seem to like the South Spain.
You do get a lot of people either want to go to Marbella, right, like at the bottom, and then you get a lot of people. My parents have a place just outside south of Alicante, and that's typically, I mean, you're struggling to find an actual Spanish person, everybody's expats, everything is, English bars and stuff all over the place. So the top area of Spain and
the top area,
the east, I've not done too much. I've been to Madrid and stuff, but I've never kind of went.
It's worth a visit for the greenery. It's very lush. It's very green. And what's the benefit of where I am now? Not to rub it in, but there's natural hot springs.
Oh, right, nice.
So like after this call, pretty much, I'm going to be going 3-minute drive down the road and jumping in hot natural water that's beside a river, so I can get in the cold river and do some hot cold sessions.
Nice.
As well, and there's quite a few of them around here. Right?
So it's a tough life.
Yep, and you got the natural sort of environment. We've got sheepdog here that are giant. So if you hear barking at any point, they might wander over and my dog will get a bit security. But they're here to protect the sheep from wolves because there's wolves up here. In the area I'm in, there's like 2 million wolves in this area. I haven't seen them yet. I really want to see them, but I also don't.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, seen them from a distance.
Yeah, but no. So it's just a different landscape. There's bears a little bit more north from here that I'd love to see because it's just such a rare thing to see a bear. But none of them are in the south, so you won't find the wolves. You won't find bears. Lots of birds. Yeah. It's just
never even heard of that. Honestly, the whole time I've been, I grew up a bit in Spain, and I can't say I've ever heard of anybody saying there was wolves in northern Spain.
Yeah, it's a thing they killed a lot of them because they're predators and they eat the sheep. So a lot of them were killed out, and there's less, but there's still quite a few. There used to be grizzly bears in Europe and in Spain, but they were all killed off. We had a very similar sort of animal climate to what America has.
Yeah,
but they were most.
Yeah, no, it makes sense that there is wild animals like that, but and in that landscape, because I know the landscape looks like I've just not been there. But yeah, that's news to me. Bulls in Spain. I need to look that up.
Oh, I've got, as you can see, a little van here, so I'm just going to give it a second as I might have to cut this out because it's really loud. I'm not seeing anyone until I've pressed record on this podcast, and suddenly, out of nowhere, someone's turning up. I just wait for him to leave.
So is it like a camp you're in?
No, I never go to a camp. I am in just a natural spot that there's a bench near, just out in the wild. Yeah. So people come here to have like a picnic or something. So there's a couple of benches around. There's some like outdoor gym equipment type stuff that's quite good. You can do some stretching and moving on. But yeah, no one really comes here.
How long have you been there?
I don't, 3 weeks, maybe a
And
month.
then it's just a kind of like move on when you feel like it, kind of a thing.
Move on when I feel like it, and move on when I feel like I've been a bit of an inconvenience to the locals. Like I don't want them to feel like I've moved in. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, you're just passing through. But I think 3 weeks is a nice time. You start to become a local in the shops, and then it's like right time to go. I'll see you next year.
It's a cool way to live. Certainly without having a solid base. Landscape's always changing, and the scenery's always changing, different scenery, and especially the settings that you go into. Because I know obviously you go into nature quite a lot, so that for me, I couldn't be more jealous, to be honest.
Yes.
We have obviously I'm in Scotland, so we have incredible nature to go off into, especially locally to me. But it's the same scenery all the time. It's the same nature. It's the same woodland walks. It's so to change that up, it sounds like you found freedom in a
Yeah.
lot of senses. Yeah.
There's an element of freedom, and then what's interesting because I'm in like my third 3.5 years now living like this. And in this third year, we've actually sort of repeated the pattern that we done last year, like a migration. So we go into all the same places that we went, that we enjoyed for winter last year. And we're just heading back, we've done the same places of summer. And occasionally you find another new spot that you haven't done, but it's almost like you're revisiting spots, So there's some sort of familiarity, and that's quite nice. You feel a little bit more grounded because the constant change is also like, it takes a little moment to get yourself grounded and centered and back because you're trying to also be productive in the digital world, online world, work, and all these areas. So when you go so much into nature, it's like that freedom almost becomes too free that you can just not be, you have to reground yourself into productivity, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Honestly, the topic of productivity and procrastination is presents itself to me daily, all day. Because I'm procrastinating all day mostly.
Well, I definitely want to get into that. And at first, though, I want, like my guests, I really like to hear about their childhood. Can you tell me about your childhood? Like, paint me a picture. What was life like for you, say, pre-10 years old?
Quite different in the sense that like the norm is to obviously you're born in a place and you have that regularity grow of the same place, growing up around your friends, same group of people, going to the same school. It was a bit different for me. I was born in Glasgow, just in a nice area. My dad was pretty well off at the time, lived in a really nice house. There was not really nothing to complain about, to be honest, at all, for the first sort of like 4 years, 5 years, then the lead up to primary school. I lived that kind of normal childhood where you're going out playing with your same friends every day and, living the early parts of your life. And then when I was just a bit into the P1, just towards the end of P1, I think it was. So it was about 6, almost 6. My dad decided we'd holidayed quite a lot in Spain up to that point. We regularly went over to Mallorca to the same place, every year up until that point. So I guess my dad wanted to, fell in love with the place so much and wanted a complete change. So he decided to move us all over to Mallorca from about 6 and P1 through to end of P1 through to P5. At the end of P5, I was over in Spain. And so that was a complete change, and from the norm in the sense that I was taken away from all that, taken away from the sort of like the same friends and the good friends that I was making up into primary school and stuff, and taken away into a foreign country, and albeit we went to an English speaking school there, which made it easier. It didn't really make it very easy for me, who was like already a very introvert, deep kind of child. Didn't make friends very easily anyway, and getting thrust into like a foreign situation in so many senses, it's it was difficult. It was difficult to then go and try and make friends when you weren't already good at it. And there's a language barrier there because, albeit it was an English speaking school, there was English speaking kids, but most of them were still Spanish. And where my brother found it no problem at all, being the extrovert that he is, was out there, the entertainer kind of version of a child, whereas I was the complete opposite. He found it no issue. He could go and he made a bunch of friends and stuff. Whereas for me, it was quite. I wouldn't say torture, because obviously people go through actual torture as children, but emotionally, and it was difficult to cope with.
What was the age difference between you and your brother?
3 years. So he was he'd have been 8 or 9 probably by the time we were heading over there.
Nice. Yeah, it's really interesting because I didn't know that about you, and that's where your life went to. And like you said, it's so I find it interesting when you can see something. So you saw your brother being able to say, just blend in, socialize, do all them things, and sometimes that can actually make it more uncomfortable because you see what you want, you see what it should be like. And
to the point where I was going hanging about with him, and which wasn't fair on him, but I didn't, I would gravitate towards that because he would do all the speaking for us, albeit we were great friends as kids, because we were both put through that same situation of being taken away from our Scottish life and, what was in essence a great life here, and put into what was in essence a permanent holiday, but you just had to go to school. It was he found it no issue.
and it obviously didn't change your accent at all. You still got a strong Scottish accent, so that didn't...
it went weird for a while. It went weird. I mean, that kind of, obviously you're over there, so it's kind of like you have to change your accent and the way you speak to kind of, so the other, obviously the Spanish kids could understand you more clearly. But then I took on this kind of weird twang where I can't even repeat it now because I've not used it in so long, but it's a sort of like you develop a sort of hybrid Spanish person trying to speak English, but you're natively speaking English, but it's just this weird then sound that comes out. So
do you speak Spanish now? Did you learn the language?
No, not really. I never really, because I was so young, and we went to English speaking school, and I barely didn't speak to many people. I had like 1 or 2 friends at the school, and everybody else that I met were like, because my dad ran a few bars in Santa Ponsa. It's a sort of a small holiday spot just not far from Magaluf. Because he ran a few bars, everybody that I would meet would be like people coming over on holiday. So like other Scottish kids found a Scottish themed bar. Like of course they're all going to come there. So quite a lot of Scottish people and Scottish kids would come there, English speaking kids and stuff. So yeah.
Did you find anything back then when you was feeling that sort of isolation or discomfort? Was there an activity or something you did that made you feel a little bit more, say, for better use of the word, at home, a little bit more balanced?
Yeah, I was just a pretty quiet kid, honestly. I would draw all the time. I would find, and most of the time I'd be sitting in the corner drawing, or if not, tagging along with whatever my brother was doing. Because he would go and make the friends, and then I would tend to tag along and make friends with whatever their younger sibling was that he'd made friends with. So I was kind of all just tagged along. If I wasn't doing that, then I was just sitting in the corner, really quite quiet, really quiet child.
And do you remember what your sort of your youngest ambition or dream or goal was? Something you wanted to do, be or become when you was older?
Always generally had no idea.
Even if it's like a cowboy or an astronaut?
Yeah, probably all the usual things went through my mind, like astronaut and policeman and all that kind of stuff, that you're taught to think, that's what I want to be when I grow up. But a mixture of things, really. I loved football, but I never really had many aspirations to be a footballer, but I was decent at it. I loved pool, but I never thought, well, you're not going to be a pool player when you're older. There was no such idea, no idea like that to me, that you could be a professional pool player. If there was anything like that, then I would have probably become one, because I was playing pool every day, all day, you know. But obviously when I was not at school, but yeah, I never really had any idea. I didn't think at that point too far into like the future. I was quite dealing with the there and now kind of a person. I wasn't. I mean, I daydreamed and I thought, you know, my mind would wander, but I was never really not aspirational to be any particular thing. No,
Okay.
which is no surprising then that I'm no particular thing now, which is so I've become exactly probably what I had in my mind as a kid, because I'm actually a mishmash and a mixture of a whole bunch of things now. No one profession, you know, has ever, like, I've never really been interested in doing one thing, and so that's probably been from all the way back when I was a kid. In fact, it will have been. Definitely.
No, I always ask my guests, because I find it just intriguing. But for the most part, people are living whatever that is in some way. You know, like I had one woman and she wanted to be a surgeon when she was younger, a doctor and a surgeon. Then she got pregnant accidentally. She had like 4 kids that she never planned, and like she couldn't finish her medical school and everything else. But she became someone that works on very precise sort of help towards mental health and services. And I said to her, it's like you're trying to dissect the human mind now. You know, I said, like a surgeon. I said, that seems to be exactly. She's like, oh, yeah, that's exactly what I do. So she's almost gone in that direction, just not the very first visualization of it. You know, but that same energy, that same thing that we want, I think from a very young age, we have this instinct that we want to do something.
Yeah. What about you? I mean, what did you want to be when you were?
No one's asked me. So when I was a kid, there was 3 things that came up, and I'm not sure in which order. I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to go in space. Space fascinated me.
Yeah, same.
I liked cowboys. I liked that idea, but I didn't really want to be a cowboy. I wanted to be an architect. I liked for something to do with buildings. The structure of buildings fascinated me, and I thought, I wonder if I could be an architect and make my own buildings. And I think they were my main driving. So it was like being an astronaut, going into space, or being an architect. And I like the Indiana Jones as well, discovering stuff like that, sort of archaeologist, being a discoverer. That was appealing. So it was like, for me, it was something like that. And then now later in life, I still love space, and I'm fascinated by the stars and the moon. And I spend a lot of time just gazing at them and trying to work out their patterns. I like to discover new things and go on little discovery missions, whether that's with the mind, the self, health, conversations, you know, so I'm still applying them same things. And as far as building and structure, now it's like, how can I build good foundations for myself and for others rather than physical structures? So I feel like I still apply the same techniques and principles of them really early ambitions.
Yeah, to actual real life.
But I've got no real actual now. I'm not like, oh, I want to be an astronaut and go into space. You know, it's not something I think about.
Yeah, but it's something you're still passionate about. You know, and
yeah, the passion's still there, the flame's still there, and it still excites me. And I seem to notice that. And so, what point did you get out of not out of Spain, like it's escape? What point did you? It's like I'm waiting. I'm like, how did you do it?
Yeah, how did you get away?
Yeah, so how did you end up back in Scotland?
Well, the school I went to here in Kilmarnock was a small village, a really picturesque, Scottish village just outside Glasgow. The school I went to there for P1. Then when we went to Spain, went to another school, obviously, over there. And then we came back because my mum wanted us to have a Scottish or a British education, secondary education. So my brother at that point was at the point of going into first year in high school. So he came back earlier than me, probably about, maybe, I can't recall fully, but maybe like 6 months before. He came back and stayed with my aunt and uncle at the time. But the idea was that we were all, that was it, the Spanish dream was kind of over. I don't think my dad wanted it particularly to be over, but the realistic, it was pretty realistic of my mum, to be fair, to want a British education, because I think the idea was that it was always going to end up that we were coming back. at some point. So I think probably the cut-off was to get us back for, Gavin back for high school, and then obviously I was going to follow along wherever we were going. So we came back, but I then had to go into another school here, which was in East Kilbride, which is just another place just outside Glasgow. I had to come back and do the last 2 years of primary school there, another new school. So it was like, I was taken away from my primary school, gone to Spain, done a few years there, and then came back, done another couple of years in primary school at another school. And then we moved from the place we moved back to, once my dad had then followed us back, we moved back to the same place that we were in before we'd even gone to Spain. So I was then, for me, starting high school. So I went to East Kilbride for the last couple of years of primary school, and then we returned to the place where it kind of all began before we went to Spain, for me starting high school. So I ended up going to high school with all the people that I was originally in P1 with before we went to Spain. But I'd had all of this stuff happen in between, whereas they'd had, they'd stayed together as friends, they'd been to each other's birthday parties over the years, and formed all their wee groups as you do through primary school. And meanwhile, I've been taken to 2 different primary schools across 2 different countries, and just had this kind of like weird few years of upbringing. But then, so I went into first year in high school, walking into the assembly hall, and then everybody's like, "Holy shit, there's Craig Taylor!" Like, there's Craig Taylor. Have you seen Craig? It was like a very strange feeling for me, because I was friends with these people when they were 5 years old and 6 years old, but they had no idea really what had happened to me. And then I just appeared, okay, I'm here to join in with you now in high school, but then it was impossible at that point for me then to just like click back in. It was like, you've been taken out of that, but then there you go, you're back where you kind of like would have been had you just stayed and would not go to Spain, and you didn't experience all of that. So yeah, that's in long answer to your question. It's that's how we ended up the back. And then from then for high school years, I stayed in the same place, stayed in the same house, and did the whole thing normally from then. But I'd had all of that happen in my more formative years of primary school. And so, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it's really interesting, because I can remember certain like kids coming in and out of school at certain points. Not like really picture clear right now, but I remember the feeling of when a kid had left for a while. Like, it could have, you never find out sometimes the full story, but you really recognize when they come back in. And for you saying like you was more introverted, and I imagine all eyes were on you, and you maybe as the only Scottish person coming in with a tan as well, like,
totally.
Where have you been, what you've been doing, but also it just makes you more different. It just isolates, especially if I find a lot of introvert people, they already feel a bit different,
Totally.
And that can be cause them to have anxiety and stress when all eyes are on them and everyone's going, you're different.
Yeah.
So I imagine that must have been some pressure to build back into, and to just be consistent in going and participating. For me, high school, I remember like I had done the same middle school as all my friends, and then we changed to a different high school for the last sort of years of school when you're a teenager, and you had an option of like 2 to go to, and like I wanted to go to one where no one did know me. For me, it was like the opposite. It's like, I want to start fresh. I don't want to be in the same school with all the people that know me. Didn't have issues, but I felt I was from the hometown, that my mum was really close to the school. Everyone, I didn't even know if they knew or not, but I was paranoid that everyone knew that my mum had mental illness, that I'm associated with that, and I'm going to be judged upon that. And it caused me a lot of stress. So I was like, if I go to a new school that's further away, there's less chance that anyone will know me. And then when I did that and I went there, there's still some kids that came from my school. And then I was paranoid. I was like, they're talking about me and telling the other new kids all about me. So my stress was like a different one. I wanted to start afresh. I wanted to be the new kid put in a place, because I was like, I can just build from afresh. So it's like interesting that it's different in that way. And now later in your life, you're doing, from what I know, graphic design and website development. And I wanted to talk to you about procrastination, but how did that develop? So you've gone from school, is that something you ended up in? How did your from school to now get you to where you are?
That's a long that's a long one. But yeah.
Did you have any visions of that? Because we've grown up, we're
Well,
similar age. So we've grown up
yeah.
with technology. When I was in school, we moved to Turtle around the screen with code, you know what I mean? Real basic stuff.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, totally. I mean, throughout school, I had access to all the, early technology stuff, like we all did, before dial-up, but we still had, these massive computers in school. So I was always quite interested in computing and technology and all that kind of stuff. I was that way, that minded. I was always into gaming. I mean, I loved like playing gaming, Nintendo. I suppose when you were asking earlier, what did I get lost in? It reminded me of that normality would be probably getting lost in like playing the NES or, the Game Gear or, whatever it was at the time. So yeah, I've always been interested in technology, but so throughout like high school, I would, I would always be good at the practical stuff. I was very good at learning theory. Probably because my mind, probably because I know now most of the shit you learn is useless anyway. So it was probably my subconscious working for me to say you're not going to need to know any of this crap. So don't bother. Just be good at learning things through doing, which I've always been good at. So the practical things of using the computer and, as you say, moving the very early things of moving things around the screen and stuff. I feel privileged to have actually been to grown up with the evolution of the technology that we use now in its most advanced forms that we wouldn't have even dreamt of then, or we would dream of, but it would be in the movies, like as if it was some sort of thing way in the future. And now you're holding an iPhone and using an iMac and all these different forms that we use them in. It's amazing. So throughout high school, I was always dead passionate about computers and using and learning how to use them and learning the software and stuff like coding and building websites from HTML code, actually coding them. I mean, now you don't need to do any of that stuff. I mean, even the most professional web designers know code because that's what they need to learn to do. Probably a lot more custom stuff for people to write apps and all that sort of stuff. Now you still need to know code and stuff, but there's so many tools out there that do things for you very quickly, and a drag and drop process and web page builders and stuff like that. So I knew that stuff in high school, but I still had no clue what I was wanting to do. Not an idea, to the point where I didn't really kind of try in any of the subjects. I was good at them. I was naturally good at history. I was great. I could learn all about history very easily. There's the only thing that I learned very well in theory. Horrendous at English and maths, but I enjoyed like physics and chemistry, but again, not good at the theory, not good at doing the exams, but I was good at doing all the experiments. Anything I can actually put my hands on, and then graphic design again, because I'm using my creativity and I'm using the computer, or I'm creating something, doing something. So yeah, and but as I said, I didn't have a clue what I was going to do when I left school. So my dad and my brother being in the building trade, it was only then natural for my dad to start pushing me towards, you've got to do something, so why not just go to college and a quantity surveying course? You could become a quantity surveyor. At the time, I was like, slap my wrist now. I mean, God, I'd just get it over and done with, please. Even at then, I was like, I don't want to be a part of the system. I don't want a job, but I appreciated that I had to obviously still get my finger out and do something, and I just didn't have a clue what that was. So I did a year at College of Building and Printing, a quantity surveying course like an HNC, and then my dad was trying to say, well, why don't you go and get a part-time job working as a quantity surveyor and do like college on the side and stuff. And again, it's like kind of just appease him more than anything. I would be like, okay, cool, but because I've got no other really kind of idea what I'm going to do. So, but then my sister saw that. My sister Donna, she saw that probably happen within me, that I needed some direction from somewhere, and what I was kind of like, what the suggestions my dad was coming up with, which is, to be fair, what he knew was building industry. So he was naturally just trying to encourage me into something that he could help me do. Donna, and my sister, on the other hand, she was going out with a guy who was working in IT, and because I was always quite good with computers and stuff, they offered me an apprenticeship to join their company. And so I began to have a bit of sort of direction, and because I can learn really quickly, and I was already quite good with technology to begin with, and I'd grown up with computers and I was quite passionate about them, it all became quite second nature to me. So I worked in IT from 19 after college. So I dropped out of college, obviously, and I said, right, I'm going to start this job. So I started the job, and probably until I was about 27, really, it was just IT support, fixing computers, sorting people's email problems, working on help desk and stuff like that. So I played that sort of role, that working career type, but I was never happy. I was depressed all the time about it. I couldn't, lots of the time, I couldn't face another day kind of a thing. I was just dragging myself to work and stuff. But that being said, it gave me one of the best experiences I'll probably ever have in my life, and probably my most eye-opening was they had a contract for Stena, the oil company, and so they did satellite communications installs and computer installs on board oil tankers and oil platforms, and other types of like ferries and all kinds of stuff. Wherever they were building a ship around the world, the company I worked for would go and install all of the onboard technical equipment. And I got sent away on that quite quickly. I mean, I'm talking probably my first trip to Dubai was like when I was a month, 2 months after I started that IT job apprenticeship, I was away to Dubai, and that was in 2005. So that was really before Dubai actually started really, really getting built up. I mean, it was already quite, far on in regards, like, it's how Dubai is now, but that was back then. So yeah, I mean, the story goes on, but I mean, it's
before I lose track on them parts of your story, what I find really interesting with it is, like you said, the technology, and because of our age being similar, we both, like I said, got to see technology grow, like from the nurture. And what I realized looking back on my own life is, and you mentioned it there, which brought it back to me, was at the beginning, I used to lose myself in computer games because I got to explore from, like you said, and it was always Nintendo for me was my favorite from the very beginning. But it started, like you say, Game Boy, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and went through all these different consoles. And I remember like Mario 64 and Zelda especially. And these sort of games I could lose myself in. Yeah. And then with technology growing, when I was lost and I didn't know what I was doing, I liked technology. And again, I used to draw a lot. And then I realized I can sort of draw and create art through computer, and I started doing like graphic design work. But I was inspired by the games I played. I used to like the menu on the game, all the graphics, the text they use, Street Fighter, the way they do the vert, or every little bit of the actual graphic design inspired me to create art in my own way through graphics, whether it's DVD menus or posters. But I found, looking back, as like, actually them games really gave me a lot of distraction from the pain of life. You could play a game, and I remember sometimes coming home, like we was moving house one time when I was younger, and my dad got annoyed because I took the TV out, a little TV, the Nintendo 64, and went plugged that upstairs in an empty room while everyone's empty and everything. but that was just the first thing I did. And he goes, I just disappeared. And he's like, where are you gone? And I was like, I just went straight to the game. Do you know, it's like you just
Yeah.
plugged in. And he's like, not yet. He goes, nothing's even come out the van yet. And you've already
Yeah.
rummaged through and found your computer, found your TV.
Yeah. So I was the same.
I would get up early for school to play in the 64. I used to get up really early so I could get in a bit of gaming before I went to school, and I'd still be late because I didn't
Yeah.
really want to go. Do you know?
Yeah.
I was up early.
Yeah, I knew. Yeah. Definitely, I'm the same. I'm the same, and I just and whereas my brother wasn't, he wasn't ever really bothered. Whereas I was just like, I wanted every gaming console going, and as you say, it is a way to sort of escape and just like it might seem like a waste of time, but it is a way to escape. And when you're that young and you're presented with all these outside challenges like moving school and trying to make friends and stuff like that, well, what's the go-to thing that's always there? So that's definitely did that for me as well. But yeah, through on from my IT job, how I got onto graphics, very quickly, because it's a very long story. Worked in IT, did all the traveling, began to have a mental breakdown and I was about 26. And because I was really just kind of like, I'm not doing at all I am happy doing, or what I want to do to make me happy. But I'd fallen into everything. I felt at that point I'd just fallen into IT. I'd fallen into bouncing around off of life, never actually taking control and thinking, right, well, what do I actually want to do? What am I good at and what am I happiest doing? I'm happiest creating things, designing things, drawing things. I'm a creative person. So, right, okay, well, how am I going to get into doing that? Well, I was already kind of starting a sideline thing alongside the IT job, of like doing graphics and posters and leaflets and the odd website, very early websites, for people. And then it was just a sideline thing that just ticked away over the years. So that all the way back from pretty much when I was still in IT, I was always having a sideline thing. And eventually I thought I want to just make my sideline thing my thing. And but then, as I said, 26, 27, I've just had a complete, well, not a complete, because it went on from there, but it was a few years of a total mental rearrangement going on up there. And so I got into another couple of jobs out of the technical stuff into more marketing and advertising and stuff like that. And so I was a marketing manager for a few people for like over 4 years. And then that got me quite moved on in regards like all other forms of how to bring your creativity to the online world. And so I became a lot better with websites, and I became a lot better with selling the fact that I could do them, and bringing really just a big mishmash of all the things I've learned and all of my technical and creative ability to provide it as a service. And that's manifested in a bunch of different ways. I now do like boxing posters, designs for boxing promotions and gyms up and down the UK, because I love boxing. I mean, I'm hugely passionate about boxing. So I'm fortunate enough to work in the areas and using all the skills that I've gained over the years to work in a capacity that I'm passionate about. And I'm passionate about helping people as well. So like, people come to me now, say, oh, I've got a business idea, and I can now do, because of my technical background, I can now do pretty much all aspects of everything that they need, that they would need to maybe go to like 4 or 5 different people and try pay 4 or 5 people different rates of money and stuff, whereas they can come to me and I'll pretty much take care of everything that they're going to need for that business. So that's really what I've kind of I've kind of fallen into it, but I've fallen into something this time that I was wanting to do in a way, but albeit not all my life. I didn't want to just be for want of a better term, and I hate the term, as jack of all trades, but I've I've been able to just, as I said, bring everything that I do to be a graphic designer, to be a web designer, to be a marketing guy, to be a technical guy, and that suits me and it suits my lifestyle choice now. So that's how I went from not having a clue to having a bit of a career, building the skills, and then working out how I was going to do that as a business for myself. And so I'm not just a graphic designer, I'm not just a web designer, but I'm happy to be called any one of them at any one point, just depending on who it is I'm speaking to and what it is they need from me, you know.
Yeah, no, nice. And yeah, and I've seen it in a lot of people that have had same mental health, like depression or just anxiety or just feeling like life's just not pleasurable, not waking up happy. That when we limit our creativity in whatever, that can be all different for different people. But it sounds like for you, like you said, it's just putting your actual coming up with a concept that you've come up with and shining that light. Like, this is how I think this looks. So someone comes to you and says, like, I've got this idea, you can have freedom of creativity. And I imagine they're the products you enjoy the most, where you can, actually put your own part in it.
Yeah. No, I love that aspect, because I'm not just creating a boxing poster. I'm putting my ideas and what's coming through to me into it. Anybody can fling a design together, but I go the kind of extra mile to make it look that much better, because I'm really passionate about it, and that's really what makes the difference to whether or not you're going to make a success of anything. The passion has to be there. And for so many years, I was working in IT, and albeit a decent job, and I was traveling the world. I mean, I went everywhere. I went to 118 countries over 7-year period. I mean, it was let's go everywhere. And from the outside, people would be like, fucking hell, Craig's away again, or,
yeah, like you got the dream life, dream job.
I was in Singapore last week, or I was in China, and I was all these amazing places, but underneath it all, I was just like, I can't be arsed going to Croatia again. I can't be arsed going to see. Looking back, I'm kicking myself, because if I'd been in the space I am now, I would have obviously appreciated it a tremendous amount, definitely. But then again, I wouldn't have probably been doing that thing. So everything happens for a reason and all that. And it's great that I had that experience. No one else. I mean, I've had it in the early years. No one really I knew had the experience of being brought up in a holiday resort, really, and over a number of years, and had to move school. Nobody really went through that. Nobody really has had the career that I had and seen all the places that I've been, but I'm fine with. I'm all right with that. I'm all right with the fact that I experienced that alone. That's fine. But I would have appreciated it a whole lot differently. Had that happen now. You're going to all these amazing places. Like being a 19-year-old, 20-year-old going to a certain country. I was thinking at the time, this is nice. It's all right. It's not. It's nice. That's a nice beach, or that's a nice bit of scenery, or whatever. But now I would be going exploring. I'd be taking a day either side, 2 days either side, to just explore wherever I was going and stuff.
Yeah, no, I can really resonate with that, because I've mentioned, if anyone that's followed a lot of my podcast or videos, they'll see some of my story that sort of, I imagine it paints only bits of puzzles. And for me, I went to India a couple times and South Korea, representing England in kite festivals, if you can believe. I don't know if you've seen that in any of my stories. It's come up very few times, but I was a national kite flyer, representing England, touring around India, and then we had to go to South Korea, and we was there, and I got to do that. But at the time, I was suffering really bad depression. I had borderline, my chronic fatigue was coming on, but it wasn't bad enough that I could do things, but I was miserable. When I look back at some of the pictures of me, I could see the pain, I could see the suffering, but it was a bit like when you said you'd see your brother doing stuff. When I was there, I felt like I should be able to enjoy this, and I couldn't, and I just felt miserable. And I was like, everyone was happy. It was so colorful. There's so much going on, and I felt so privileged to have the experience. But no matter what I did, I couldn't feel good. And it was really uncomfortable. It's like, I could see it. And now looking back, I was like, oh man, if I was there now, how I feel now, what an amazing experience.
That's what
shows you your growth, isn't it? It's the good thing. It shows you where you are now, that you're happy where you are. And that's where you are. You're only now. So
totally. I mean, but that's what depression and stuff like that does to you. It clouds your judgment, and You know, when you're not happy, you're not happy. And eventually, I think life will just like thrust you in a certain way that it will give you the opportunity to, you know, and that's really kind of what I'm looking at back at it as, because like 2013, 2012, 2013, really not fun years for me at all. I was even labouring at one point for my dad and brother's building and thing, up and down, to carrying cement up and down flights of stairs for buildings that were doing up and tight because I'd come out of IT without a plan. I just left my IT job pretty much, and I had nothing to go to. I had fairy tale ideas that I wanted to work for myself, and I was going to set up my own company, and that was it. And you know, I thought I'd learned everything I needed to learn by that point. I'm going to start it. That's it. And then I didn't make that great a success of it at all, to the point where I was like, right, Dad, I need a job. So he would go and send me onto a building site, and that's what I ended up doing for a while. So it wasn't. And I did at that point, I was like, oh crap, you know, what am I really doing with my life? And everything from the outside is only confirming that, you know, because people then start getting a bit pissed off with you and impatient with you if you're, you know, feel you're just depressed all the time. Nobody really kind of wants to be around that. But so, and anyway, I had to just kick myself into gear, and eventually I luckily got the jobs in marketing and stuff, and kind of found a direction back. But the mental health was a big problem but I don't look at it as a case of I was actually going through a mental health problem. I think it was just me, the universe telling me, this you're on the wrong path, because I started having then synchronicities that come my way when I was like, you know, when I really hit rock bottom. I started turning to like books like Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, and all these kind of like wonderful books that teach you there's another way. You don't need to be depressed about anything. You don't need to be anxious about anything. You just need to restructure the way you're thinking about things, and you need to be more conscious of your positive thinking, and not listening to your negative thinking, and not following your thoughts. You're not your thoughts, and all these sorts of brand new concepts started coming my way, and so that's really kind of what saved me. It was from depression and stuff like that, which was clouded in my judgment for sure. But
yeah, and that's interesting. And that was a big part of my journey, like detaching from your actual thoughts and going through process. And you know, and it is a growth process. And I see it now as like life was giving me what I needed, not necessarily what I wanted. You know, and now I make it useful. And if I don't make it useful today, maybe I'll make it useful tomorrow. Maybe I'll make it useful in 10 years. Who knows? But like for me, it's always making use of any of the moments of suffering. It's like, how can I make that somehow useful instead of being used? And I think that's what life's always given us. And we talked briefly, because we're getting nearer to the end. We've got like another 10 or so minutes. But you talked briefly about procrastination. So now you're self-employed. You're getting to create, you know, you got your own stuff going, but you're now your boss.
It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. I love it. I would change it, and I couldn't go back to living, working for anybody. But it's a big problem, and it's a problem that I don't think too many people consider. You know, a lot of people overthink their sort of self-employed ideas about all the smaller things, like the technical things, or you know, my branding or my marketing and all that sort of stuff. And then they don't think about the practicality of being your own boss, and you know, the fact that you're going to have to be disciplined and self-motivated to keep the idea of what it is you're doing in your forefront of your mind, so it gets you out of bed in the morning and stuff. And then then life happens. You know, you need to deal with having kids. You need to deal with structuring your day or planning for things, and then things will pop up that you'll not then get the thing done that you need to do. And then just generally, you're sometimes end up exhausting yourself, and the things that you then have not done build up. That brings around its own sort of anxious feeling of, oh crap, I've not dealt with that yet. And then when you do it, this is the thing about procrastination. When you actually just do it, it never takes you as long as you were thinking it was going to take you, and it was far easier than it was. You were building it up in your mind, but you're just creating excuses all the time. These are the excuses that you tell yourself, like, either too difficult, it's going to take too long, or you've got better things to do, or whatever. And the stories that you just listen to and tell yourself. Whereas if you actually could just, and I've done it for a while, did it for a good while, plan out my next day the night before. This has been the best thing I've ever done, and the worst thing I ever stopped doing, because it keeps you accountable for what you're actually going to be able to achieve the next day. And when you're working to a plan, that's the only thing that stops procrastination. Because when you leave it up to your mind, or when you leave it up to, well, I might get that done, or you wake up, oh, I could do that today, or I might get that done, you'll never get anything done. Whereas if the night before, it sounds so simple, but honestly, I say to anybody who thinks it sounds simple to try do it for a month and then see how they get on. If they can stick out for a month and start, you'll cement that in as a habit and you'll continue it, and great. But trying to actually do it for that long and stick to it, it's just so difficult when all these other things crop
How
up.
long time, let's say, would you recommend for someone, for the next 30 days, if someone was to say like an hour before bed, I would say, or even just before bed, like 15 minutes, plan out the next day, or sit there for a longer amount of time, or just like literally a couple of to-dos next day, do that and try that every day for 30 days?
Well, I tend to reflect on the day I've had. I write a quick note about that, whether or not I think I've been generally successful, had a successful day. And a successful day for me is I've gotten through a chunk of work that I've been putting off for a while. That's a pretty successful day. Or I've got things to customers who on a timely manner that they've expected them. That's a successful day. So I'll write these wee things down, like plus points, and then like where I could improve, I'll write, okay, well, on an ongoing basis, I want to improve A, B, C, D, and E, and just have that generally in my mind of what I'm working towards. And then I'll get specific ones of like, okay, well, tomorrow you are going to do this kind of a thing. So it comes in a few sections. Praise yourself a little bit for any things you've done well, and then some things you need to work on, and then, as I said, structure out the rest of your day. For in the morning, I'm going to get that done. In the morning, from then and then, I'm going to get that done. And so that's how I would tend to suggest people do it. But that's just what now works for me. But not everything that.
Everyone's
I can't
unique.
I can't imagine it not working for someone else.
I was going to say everyone's unique, but certain basic structures, it's what they put in the to-do list that will be unique. But the basic habit of just
the basic
brain dumping out
it down.
Stuff, writing, and for me, write pen to paper, it has to be. For me, like, I can't type notes. They're not as serious. They don't.
I never bring it up. I don't look at my notes every day. I don't look in the morning, but I'll look at a bit of paper that I've got beside my bed.
Yeah, and just that, I think putting that pen to paper and actually writing it, like it's imprinting it more with our mind and our body connecting in that moment in a certain way. But I find, planning out the day, and let's see if this relates to you at all, because I consider myself a very creative person and I have a real imagination that can run a bit wild. And when I have a focus and a direction, I can give you 1,000,001 ways to get there. But that's my procrastination, is spending time imagining all the ways. And sometimes I have to write down the steps, like do this way, do this way, do this way. Stop thinking of more ways to do something, because you can spend all your time just thinking of the multiple ways of doing it, and you don't get into the doing part. And another, sorry.
I was just saying, it's important as well to remember that you need days as well of doing nothing, and you need to allow yourself days where you've had a down day, as well, especially when you're self-employed, because your weeks, you don't have a weekend really. I don't have a weekend really. I fit into the weekend mold. My wife, obviously, she finishes on a Friday and has her weekend, and that's what I still have a weekend. But ultimately, I'm just always still trying to structure my day so I can fit in a little bit of work here and there, and that's which is what you have to do. But it's important to remember to have a down day, and it be all right that you're letting something put off something, because you might be waiting for a spark of creativity to come for that thing that you need to do. Maybe it's just not the right time to actually get it done, So You've got
Yeah,
to allow yourself some
definitely. And
downtime.
for me, what worked is changing the word rest. And I've seen it work on others because rest sometimes can be associated with procrastination or laziness. And it can also not be, say, rest could just be doing nothing. And for me, it's rejuvenation. It's like in this period, I'm letting my body rejuvenate. So it's more productive. So when I do go back to action, I have more action that's more sustainable for me. I just set my mind as like, I need to rejuvenate. So that could be to lay down, that could be to breathe, to walk. Sometimes it's just doing something creative that isn't for purpose, whether it's a doodle. I'll just start, I might just sit here and got my notepads there and I might just draw a tree, a really bad one or a good one, or, just something distracting where you're just like not trying to bring yourself back to the moment you're in, not about thinking about work and tasks. But
most of my best ideas come to me when I'm out, like a walk in the woods, or doing something completely unrelated. I very rarely sit here actually in my office and then I'm actually inspired creatively. I'm here to do the things that I'm thinking about doing at all other places, and then I come here to actually do them. I'm very rarely sitting here trying to come up with ideas. I'm already come up with the ideas while I've been doing all these other things. So it depends what you label as procrastination and what you label as, actually.
What I did at one point in my life that I can't do now because of I don't have a console with me and I don't have enough power supply to play a console game. But what I used to do before, when I had my little office and I'd be working doing some graphic design and some video editing, and every time I wanted a bit of inspiration, I would schedule in little 10-minute games. I would go on the console and play a game like whether it's Grand Theft Auto or Zelda or something where there wasn't really much objective other than I'd be distracted for 10 minutes and I'd give myself like a 10-minute slot. And I might do 10 minutes every hour. But I realized that the other minutes in that, the 50 minutes where I was working, became super productive. And I also had this different imagination, especially for the creativity and the graphics, because something in the game normally sparked something. But it was like I zoned out for them 10 minutes. Like when I was a kid, it was like 10 minutes of rejuvenation, even though my mind's active playing a game. I think it was the pattern built in from doing that when I was younger to escape. But I started to use that like a tool. So I'd play a game for 10 minutes, work 50 minutes, play a game 10 minutes, work 50 minutes. And I could do that for 12 hours straight and I didn't seem to burn out, But I also came out of a relationship around that time and there was no judgment. Like no one's going to come in and tell me like, what are you doing playing a game? Shouldn't you be working? So that all, and I'm like, no, I'm doing that to be productive, but I didn't have to justify that to anyone but myself. So that also made that really easy.
Yeah, I know, totally. Well, that's the best thing about being self-employed, because you can afford those days of you can just do what you like, basically. Whereas you get a place of work and you have to go clock in and you have to do the thing that you're there to do. And I don't know how people do it. Honestly, I don't know how people do it anymore. Especially after what's happened with COVID and stuff, which, you've obviously said we're running out of time, but we haven't even scratched the surface on, all the topics that we could go into. But, I think with COVID, it's created that opportunity for a lot of people to reevaluate whether or not they actually are in the job that they love or they're doing what they're passionate about. Because I've been so busy with people starting businesses and starting one-man bands that they've been thinking about doing for ages, and so I was all right through COVID.
Well, yeah, it sounds like you were in a perfect position for a growing market.
A lot of people had that in their mind that while they were locked down, they were going to get everything set up so that when everything then all the lockdown stopped, they were going to leave their job and go on and do something. So I had like a good number of like branding jobs and website jobs and stuff like that. So I think it's soul destroying for like just going to a place of work doing the one thing each day and every day. But it's only because you're being made and forced, kind of you're not given the opportunity to let things naturally come to you. You're put under pressure. Like, have you done that thing? Have you done that thing? Where you are with that? What's it? I don't know. Yeah, I'm just trying to let some creativity come on, and so. But for some people it works. Some people are career people and they're professional people and they're in a job and they can do that. They can go. But for me, I just don't. I don't understand how they can. I did it for a while, and look what it done to me. I mean, I got to suicidal points, and because I couldn't do it anymore. And so yeah,
no, definitely. And my brother mentioned a word. I never even heard of the word. I don't know if it's a word he invented or it's what. But we were talking about, like someone says they're an entrepreneur. where they've got that sort of business mindset, work for yourself. And he said that, he goes, there's also the duality, because some people are entrepreneurs. And he goes, these people go into a job, and he goes, they thrive taking an idea and expanding on it, but not being the creator of the idea. Because whereas the entrepreneur wants to create the idea and needs many entrepreneurs to come into their business to make it thrive. And I feel with a lot of how businesses have became incorporated and become now, that when you're the type that gets into the business and you could make it thrive, you're limited because you don't get that creativity control to grow your brand. Whereas now the smaller brands are opening up with that, so it's like finding that place, like your business. And then you would have someone that would come in and be an entrepreneur who can really like maximize that growth. And that's where they would thrive. But it'd never be where you would thrive, because you're the creating one at the top, that you like to create something.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part for a lot of people, is like some people really do love to belong to something and to follow it, but also put in their own input to make it better. And that's also limiting but I think so, like I was like you, I couldn't, the idea of going to someone else's workplace, working for them on a structure, it was just, that was, like you said, like a form of torture to me. My whole being it's like I'll do everything I can to be a bit later, take longer breaks, just do everything to get as much of your own time and not follow the rules.
Yeah, I was always questioning it. I would always question, what are we doing? Why are we getting up and going to one place, waiting in traffic, doing the one job, seeing the same people, having the same conversations? But, when you have an outer body experience and you take yourself out of that for a second and you look at it all from an outsider point of view, you're like, oh my God, and then you are even so fortunate enough as myself now to completely work outside of that system.
And you're also aiding people so you're providing that service, like you said you like to help people. Same thing, where your direction's going, and you'll get more fulfillment even is with them ones where you're helping someone who's also outside of that box, creating their own independence, their own branding, their own mission of service, whatever that is. And I imagine, like I said, that's fueling you, because you're giving them that bridging that gap for them to actually get there. Like I said,
honestly, if someone comes to me with an idea and they can't afford it, it's like no issue as well. I do stuff for free.
Where does someone come for your services? Where would be the best place for someone to find you or connect?
A couple of different ways. I'm not too, prominent on like social media and having myself out there in a way, but I've got a website, craigdetailer.co.uk, and it's just a point of reference that I send people to show them what I do and like the range of things I do, kind of a thing, my portfolio and stuff. But more often than not, it's just through word of mouth. Like people, But if anybody doesn't know me, then that's where you can find me. But a lot of people gets me to do things that because of what I've done for someone else, and they know that person, kind of a thing.
Yeah, nice. All right, Craig. Well, I'm going to have to end the podcast there. I've got a couple of just fun short fire questions that you may have heard on the other episodes to finish with. But it's been great to actually get to know you a bit more and know a little bit more about your life and your story.
Well, that's it. We can certainly do this again and and delve deeply into some of the more conspiratorial natures of life.
Yeah, well, I'm working on a few other things, and to bring in some of my old guests back in, where it's not just about their life and their story, but picking certain obstacles within their life and how they rewired it to an opportunity, or how someone else could possibly prioritized around mental health and that sort of area.
Jack's going to kill me that I've not mentioned the Utopia project yet as well.
Well, there you got it mentioned.
Exactly, mentioned that. I mentioned it.
So check out. I imagine you put it in Google, Utopia Project, and you'll find part of what you're working towards.
At the moment, it's utopiaproject.co.uk. Yeah, and it's just a sort of a small community at the moment, of like-minded individuals and souls that we're bringing together, and we've got plans to do a podcast and retreats in the UK. Rejuvenating type retreats, and maybe as much as like mini festivals, a small mini music festival and stuff. So there's plans for it, but at the moment it's just a sort of community that's building.
It's growing. Yeah, I will put that in the description as well with your website. So if someone's looking for any help, basically branding, websites, graphic design, or just structuring their business, and maybe just trying to free themselves from a cage.
Exactly. If they're trying to escape the matrix, I have a few ways to help them do that.
And that's also a community they can join of other like-minded people that might just be wanting to connect, and have real connection, real communication.
Well, that's it. Yeah, a place to belong is what really the motto is, because we all, us types for sure, I've went through a lot of our life without a tribe, and so it's just a collection of misfits and weirdos.
Nice. Oh, great. Yeah, so I'll put that in the link. So if you had to choose one, a cat or a dog?
Oh, 100% dog. I was a dog. I had to be in a dog in a former life.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than a dog, really.
Nice. And what's your favorite color?
Red. I've always been drawn to the color red. Attracts me, since I can remember. Always. Superman as well. There's quite a lot of red. But
yeah. And
blue,
what sound or noise do you love?
Nature, 100% birds. I've got quite a nice sound. You can't. Sitting here working in my office with the door open. I've got quite a lot of trees nearby, and I can hear birds going. And to me, there's no more relaxing a sound than sitting listening to birds chirping away.
Nice. Hopefully you can't hear it, but maybe you can. But it's raining lightly in the background here. It's just the sound of, like you say, anything, rain hitting the leaves, all them, the birds chirping. Such a peaceful noise. What sound or noise do you not love so much?
Kids screaming, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much the kids screaming. And I don't mind them being playful and rowdy and a little bit, but sometimes just like the noise of a collection. A nursery would be like real hell for me. If I pass away and I'm being dealt a hellish situation, is to probably sit in a nursery all day long listening to a constant screaming and noise, and so just overstimulate anything that's too overstimulating for the hearing. That makes my I've got tinnitus, so something that makes my tinnitus blare like kids screaming, I can't bear.
What do you love about yourself?
A couple of things. That sounds really bad. I love lots about myself, but just probably how compassionate I am for other people, and my ability to learn things really quickly has served me really well. I can anything that I really put my mind to and I'm quite passionate about, I can learn quite quickly, which helps me in all areas of life.
What do you love to see in other people?
Just like care, them caring about others. It sounds a bit cliche and a bit kind of, but if everybody just cared a little bit more about others, and didn't label them and with something like we were talking earlier, if everybody could stop labeling things, I think it would make things a little bit better. This whole gender labeling thing and all that sort of stuff, it's gone crazy because everybody's just trying to stick labels on things. Mental health issues, they might not be mental health issues. They might be spiritual awakenings, and there's a whole bunch of different labels for them and words for them for sure. But everybody's just trying to stick a label on stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, nice. Last question: what do you love about animals? Is animals in natures or pets, or what do you love about animals?
Everything. Like just how I love, for different reasons. I love different animals, obviously, but as they get on with their job, they don't try to be anything else. They are what they are. A dog knows it's a dog, or doesn't, maybe is aware it's a dog, but it gets on with dog things. They all just get on with what they get on with. And I think if humans were the same and we all got on with what we need to go on with like living off the land, leaving things as we find it, helping one another cultivate things properly, and actually did our jobs, everything would be so much better. They get too many people trying to deviate from that plan. So the fact that animals just get on with what they are like supposed to get on with, probably.
Yeah, nice. I like that. All right, Craig. Well, it's been great to chat with you and to catch up, and we'll do this again soon. And
definitely.
Yeah, have a great day, whatever you're up to. And no procrastination, I guess.
I shall go and procrastinate a little bit more until I need to pick up the kids. And yeah.
Well, have a great day. Thanks again for being on the show and sharing and being authentic, being yourself, and just contributing to others.
Yeah, you too, mate. See ya.
See you later. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, check the description for all of Craig's contact information. If you're looking for web design, go check out his website. And check out coachgreenheart.com for my holistic health services, as well as you can click right here to go to the next video with Steve Hughes.